So my name is Jeffery Liang, and can someone just confirm that they can see my presentation?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, let me get this started. So I am so this is talking about using building science to improve health and comfort at home. And really, a lot of people have kind of different ideas as to what makes a home energy efficient. In fact, I've been doing this for probably 10, 12 years now. And whenever people, talk to me at parties, they're like, oh, energy efficiency, I need to do solar, or I need to do windows. And when we look at the science, it's actually a lot, somewhat surprising. What are the most cost-effective things? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and what are the best ways to really improve your health and comfort at home. So again, BayREN is the Bay Area Regional Energy Network. We are a local government collaborative. So it is these 9 Bay Area counties from Sonoma all the way down to Santa Clara. And we receive funds from the state to administer these programs. So whenever you pay an energy bill and you see a public goods charge, I don't know how many people really look at their bill that closely, but there's a public goods charge. And that charge goes to the state to run programs like these to make our buildings more energy efficient. But what we find is that energy efficiency is kind of our goal, but what we're finding is that for people who live in the home, it's about comfort and health. So talk a little bit more about that. So these are probably very common problems in the home. Like I said, I actually used to work with Tina way back in 2011 when we were launching the statewide Energy Upgrade California program. And we would do presentations, and almost without fail, everyone would have some of these issues. Like I can't tell you how many times people have told me, I can't sleep upstairs because it's so hot in the summer. And in the winter, I can see my breath because it's so cold. Someone's come up to me and said, it felt like we were camping outside every day because of how drafty the home is. Obviously, we have a lot of issues with just the comfort of our homes, but I think people also don't realize that a lot of this also has kind of translates into health issues. And so I just wanted to kind of highlight that. So most people don't know that indoor air quality is 2 to 5 times worse than outdoor air quality. Unfortunately, I can't see all your faces, but usually when I say this, I get a huge gasp or some really wide eyes, because that's very surprising. We're very concerned about outdoor air quality, especially with the fires in the past couple of years. But people don't realize that, when we talk about, kind of asthma and all those issues, it's really our homes that we should be looking at even more than outdoor air quality. I mean, it's great that, there's been lots of pictures of how much less pollution there is outside because of the less commuting. But we should also be more concerned because we're at home more of the time. 90% of our days, and this was before the pandemic, we spend 90% of our days in buildings. And as you'll see, if they're not built correctly and they're not ventilated right, that can have a huge impact on our health. And just again, this is my daughter. She's a little older now, 2.5 years old. As I learned more about these health issues in the home, it really made the difference for me because, I'm holding my child. She's close to my body. I can hear how she breathes a lot faster than I do. And of course, her immune system isn't as good. And as I learned more of the things that I'm going to tell you, I wanted to make sure all my friends who had kids knew about this, because there's some very surprising statistics. So let's get into it. So how do we know what's the best way to fix our homes? We don't guess, we actually test. And so my wife is a nurse at Stanford. She comes back home sometimes and tells me, about patients who go in and say, oh, I know what I need. Just give me this medicine. I'll be on my way. And she says, that frustrates her because she knows the right order of things is for someone to get them tested out, get a diagnosis, and then get a prognosis, get a kind of a prescription for how to get better. You should go, your blood pressure high, so you need to stop eating red meat, you need to go exercise, you need to take this medicine. This is the same way we really need to think about homes. Instead of just guessing what's going to work, we actually need to go out and test. And so we have contractors who do this. The duct blaster, what it does is blow air into a duct system and then figure out how much it leaks by seeing how much of it comes back. Same thing with the blower door. It's a big fan in your house, in your door, and they seal up everything, all the windows and the doors. They blow in air in or out, and then see how fast it leaks in and that air leaks. And so based on that, what we found is there's actually 3 things that are the biggest contributors to how uncomfortable our home feels and subsequently kind of health and also energy bills. So the first thing is actually air leakage. So this or kind of image that I give is if you added up all the holes in the average home, they'd be the size of about a hula hoop. So think about that. All that air that you are circulating throughout the house, heating up in the winter or cooling down in the summer, all that is essentially going out a hole the size of a hula hoop. That's a lot of waste. Where is that coming from? I don't know if you can see my my precursor here, but there all these red arrows here on the top is how air leaks out. So one of the major things, if you hold up an infrared camera to your ceiling during like the summer, you may often see that your roof looks and your ceiling looks like a Swiss cheese because there's can lights, there's vents, there's things that aren't sealed properly. All this is letting air up into the attic and then going out the roof. Not only do you get the hot air going out, and so this is kind of like a winter situation, but you're getting cold air coming in from other places. So if your floors feel cold during the winter, most likely, you may be getting some kind of cold air coming up from the vents that aren't sealed properly. Put your hand next to an outlet. Most oftentimes those are not sealed. You can get something a foam little pad that you can put over an outlet cover, or you just screw it off, you put it in and seal it back up. But these are the places where you're going to start feeling the cold air coming from. So when people say they feel drafty, it's surprisingly enough, it's not the windows that you typically feel the draft. It's the gaps around the windows, because that's where the air is going to come through. It's not going to try to come in through the place that's easy, that's hard. It's going to come in through places that's easy. So important thing that we suggest, and I'll talk about the contractors who do this type of work, is just start to air seal. The contractors go in, they find these places where there's gaps, and they just caulk them up right there. So that's number 1. Number 2, insulation. If you see insulation like the one over here, that is not doing you any good. Same over here. Insulation is like the blanket for your house. So when you're sleeping at night, you're not all that heat is getting trapped under the blanket, so you're staying nice and warm. That's what the insulation does for your house. And it also during the summer, it does the same. It pushes that heat. It keeps it from coming into the house. So oftentimes, if again using that infrared camera, you'll see there's a temperature gradient and that the heat's coming from the ceiling. So really, what your ceiling should look like and your attic space should look like is this. It should be kind of like freshly fallen snow to about 12. The more you can get, the better, but at least 12 to 15 inches, and you'll find that that's the standard for that the building code has set, that you need this amount. And this is, again, one of the biggest reasons why we feel hot or cold in our homes, especially in summer or winter. This one is the big one. So I have a very corny joke. Duct tape is good for everything but sealing ducts. Go and make Halloween costumes out of it. You can make wallets, but don't put it on your duct system, because as soon as it gets hot and cold, this is what happens. It starts to lose its adhesiveness. In fact, again, by the building code, you're not even allowed to use duct tape on ducts. You're supposed to use something called mastic, where you see right here. It's actually kind of like a paste that you glue around it, so that that expansion and contraction doesn't cause that joint to fail. So again, 30 to 40%, that's average. Think about that. That means that we have people who have higher than that. In fact, we've seen pictures of duct systems that are completely disconnected. Cable guy goes up there and knocks some things over. He doesn't think to put it back. So that's one of the big things to check. This photo in the middle here, also, if you start to see things like this, where there's a dirty spot around an insulation around the duct system, what that's telling us is that it's leaking behind here, because what this insulation is now doing is it's acting like a filter. And so again, when you're losing air into your crawl space and attic and making the pests and spiders really happy, that air needs to be made up someplace as well. And so a lot of times that gets sucked in through the duct system, and that's why you have these dirty spots. So I don't know if you really want to go look through your attic and crawl space today, but if you see that, that's what's happening. And like I said, sometimes the attics and the spiders and rats and all that are happier than we are in our homes, because all that heat is going into those spaces instead of where they should be going. So those are the three main things that we want to look at when you're kind of looking at the health and comfort of the home. But there's a couple other things, kind of like reducing energy bills, but there's a couple other things that really contribute to health as well. So ventilation is really important. Again, we want to make sure that people often say, oh, why don't I just open the window? That's okay. That's sometimes good, especially if the air quality is good outside. But what we want to do is control where we get air from. And so we want to make sure that when we're venting out, that there's enough airflow, because really what mold needs is three things. It needs a organic kind of surface, like wood or anything that kind of is made out of something that was living. It needs water, and it needs a lack of air movement. And so it's so important that we get a lot of ventilation, especially in places like our bathrooms. In fact, by building code, I think they're supposed to be continuously running or have some kind of sensor that kicks on as soon as there's above a certain humidity level. Why that is important, as you see, even things like pushing the couch out. You don't think of the couch as being a huge source of water, but because there's no airflow, and if there's any sort of moisture, and we give out moisture as humans, we breathe in and out, that moisture can then lead to, and if there's no airflow, that can lead to mold, just like this. We also get water, water coming in from our crawl spaces, and like our crawl spaces are usually pretty moist, and so that air coming in through the crawl space up into the house, that also can contribute to water vapor in the home. So this picture here shows how some contractors even completely seal off the bottom so that we don't have these problems. I'm just going to briefly touch on this. These are pictures of some of my colleagues' old water heaters and furnaces. And so after you've done all that, making sure that you are, keeping the house tight and sealed, then you want to start looking at more efficient water heaters and furnaces. So these are things that you want to look at. Our program I'll talk about later has rebates for these. And what it's important is, if you have a water heater like this, you also want to, you want to make sure that the exhaust fumes are going up. And so the program that I run, we have contractors that do these projects, and what they always do is check for combustion safety. So think about like Thanksgiving, you have friends in the past, and you have all these people coming to your house. You've got the shower on, you've got cooking on, you've got heating on. All these things are venting air out of the house, and the air, a house needs to be balanced. So the house is trying to, their air is trying to come in through different ways. And so if you have it so all of this air is going out of the house, potentially the air that is the combustion gases that are supposed to be going up this flue may get sucked back down in certain situations. So that's why it's important to check for combustion safety. So not only like, when I talk about health and safety, this is important that we want to check that our combustion gases are not leaking back into the house. One last thing I want to mention is cooking. So the surprising statistic I heard is that kids who live in a home with a gas stove are 42% more likely to get asthma. And there's still a lot of studies being done on this, but what we learn is that when we cook on gas, it's not a complete combustion. There's things, byproducts, carbon monoxide, NOx gases, formaldehyde that spill out. And so again, we're here testing the levels, and we want generally to be like below 10 parts per million. Unfortunately, I'll show you some graphs where we see a lot more. But one quick tip, as I learned this, is, and often our exhaust hoods are not sized properly. It should be bigger than even this because you want to capture as much as possible. So my tip is try to cook as much on the back burners as possible and always turn on your exhaust fan. I do not let my daughter near me when I cook anymore, because at least when I'm cooking on the gas stove, because I don't want her to breathe these things and get asthma. One of the things I will talk, this is one of my personal heroes, and Bourdain, but restaurant chefs are cooking on induction. They learn on induction. This is a technology that uses electricity, but it uses magnets. And so you are not generating any of those combustion byproducts. You can get, I rent in San Francisco, so I don't have the opportunity to just change out my gas stove, but I bought an induction cooktop from Amazon for $60. And it heats up water a lot more quickly, and more importantly, it doesn't have those byproducts. So I can't do all my cooking on that. You do need to use a pan that has iron in it, but as much as possible, I'm starting to use that because I'm concerned about these health effects. Here's kind of like a graph, a study that UCLA did. As you see, carbon monoxide, we generally want to stay around this level, maybe even down here. But as you see in our homes, we often are seeing levels that are a lot higher. And these are 1 hour kind of different standards of 1 hour exposure limits. We really shouldn't even be getting to this because 1 hour, that's like, this is dangerous for life. So we want to be around here. Moving on to this side, this NOx gases. You see, these are the outdoor exposure guidelines. And you see, when we cook, oftentimes we're way up above that. So cooking can sometimes be the most dangerous thing you do. And this is hard for me to say because I actually helped start a restaurant. So I love cooking. I do a lot of it, but I am concerned, and there are things, again, making sure you're ventilating properly, trying to use induction as much as possible to avoid some of these effects. And so these are some of the health effects, as I mentioned. Carbon monoxide, when inspectors go out there, I actually helped run the multifamily program in a while. We had stories, people who would have those carbon monoxide monitors on them, and it would start beeping. And carbon monoxide messes with your nervous system, so you can't think properly. And so he thankfully had been trained to get to the window, but he was really confused, and he just had to breathe for a while just to get the air back into his system. But if he didn't, he literally would have died. Again, I'm not going to go through all these things. These are all pretty bad, pretty bad effects, acute and chronic. And so as we are, one of the new things I'll talk about our rebates, we're starting to talk about electrification. We're trying to get all these gas appliances out of the home so we don't have these health effects. Last thing, I don't usually just read off my slide, but I thought this one was really important. Studies of comprehensive energy, health, and safety retrofit programs found that for children with asthma, hospital admissions fell by nearly 85% and emergency visits by 68% a year after the upgrade. This is why this is one of the big reasons why I do this and why I go out, not talking just about energy, but about health, because obviously I have a lot of friends my same age who are having kids, and I want to make sure that they have healthy kids. And especially if you know of any health systems, I would be happy to speak to them, because I think there's not enough attention placed on this, because we have so much of the focus on outdoor air quality. My last slide, kind of talking about the materials. So as of March, unfortunately bad timing, because obviously the COVID-19 happened, but these are the 4 things that we are giving rebates for now. This is a heat pump water heater. It runs on electricity rather than gas, so you don't have to worry about checking for those gas combustion spillage. And by the way, I forgot to mention, if you look at your water heater and you see any corrosion on the top, that's a telltale sign that there's been some backdrafting. So be careful if you see that. Maybe contact, I'll have some resources at the end. Here's a mini split heat pump. Ductless mini split. This is technology that's used all over Europe and Asia to heat and cool. So you can actually replace both your furnace and air conditioning with this one system. And again, it uses, so just to talk about heat pumps, you all have a heat pump in your house. It's called a refrigerator. It basically, instead of generating cool, it takes the hot air inside the system and takes it out of the box. That's what these heat pumps do. They take hot air from the surrounding area, even when it's cold in the winter, it can still get hot air, compresses it, and puts the hot air into the house. And then you can reverse that cycle. You can take hot air inside the house and vent it out. So that's what it does for the water heaters. It does it for space heating and cooling. Here is the induction cooktop that I mentioned. Again, very efficient, cooks faster, more, you can actually be more precise, and no gas byproducts. And then the last one is this heat pump clothes dryer. Again, using heat pump technology, dries the clothes. You can get rebates for this all now. So, what do you, Tina, do you want to just quickly mention what you did? I know there's not too much time, but if you want to mention what you did in your own house, or I can summarize.
There we go. Am I unmuted? So yeah. We used a local contractor that's very good about energy efficiency. It's their expertise, building performance professionals. We used them 8 years ago for our energy upgrade, and then we just did a remodel. And I learned so much. They did a walkthrough and talking about how most of the leaks in our house are out the little areas around the cuts in your framing, underneath the framing, around fixtures. And so what they did was they took foam spray and they sealed all the little leaks all around the house. The insulation here on the right is our ceiling. So they blew in foam in the ceiling and made it extremely tight. And there's this is an example of 3 different types of insulation. There's the foam that Jeffrey's pointing to, and then the one underneath that is blown in insulation. I'm not sure if he showed a picture of that up close being done. There we go. And that's the reason why the one on the right is so much more efficient than this fiberglass insulation on the left that you typically see, is because that fiberglass insulation leaves a lot of holes and spaces, whereas the blown insulation fills in all the little gaps. We actually had this done even before our house is really old. It's 1948. So they actually blew in the insulation by cutting holes in the existing, at the time it was plaster on the walls, and just blew it in. And then they cut little holes and blew it in and then sealed up the little hole. So, and this is a remodel, so they just did the whole thing. Now I wanted to share something interesting. The sheetrocker then came in, and he's never seen this before. Old school, we love him, but he looked at this and he was like, oh my gosh, this is a nightmare. I can't put my sheetrock over that. Look, it's bowing out. It's too full. And so anyway, I said, don't worry. They do it all the time. Just put your sheetrock up and see how it goes. Well, then, one little screw was coming out, and it turns out because the people that hung it put the sheetrock over the outlet plates. And so it was bowing out because of that. And he thought it was bowing out because of the insulation. And he called me and he says, oh, this is all wrong. It's all ruined. And I was freaking out. And I called up Curtis from Mason Building BPP, Building Performance Professionals, who did the installation. And he said, oh, he was very calm about it. And anyway, it turns out it was perfectly fine. And it worked out great. There's no problems with it at all. And we have a really super tight home.
Yeah. I mean, that's simply the thing. I mean, like, we so much focus on solar and windows, but it's really just insulation and air sealing. If you just do that, your house can be a lot more comfortable. So I know I'm kind of going a little long, so wanted to just quickly go over what are the simple things that you can do and what are the resources that we have to help. So first of all, you can go to our website. We can help you get really started with just easy things. You can fill out a self-assessment, and we will send you out LED, smart strip, low flow shower heads, aerators, just to get you going. When you need a little bit more help, we have this program called Home Energy Score, and that's someone who can come out and do a quick 1-hour assessment of your home. Obviously, people are maybe a little bit wary of that, but it doesn't take as things get back to normal, hopefully people can do some of these. But you basically get like a miles per gallon sticker for your home. Find out, kind of what are some easy things that you can do to improve your home. And it's essentially free because we will give you a $200 assessment rebate. And the homeowner, unless your house is huge, it's not going to cost much more than that. So that's one easy way to do it. And then our program, again, it's a local government program, so this is unbiased help, but we have a home energy advisor whose only job is to walk you through this whole process. They can help you find contractors, they can answer any questions that you have. If you want to find, since we focus on energy, we don't do water rebates, but if you are interested, they will direct you to the complimentary program. So, call them, email them, they will walk you through every step of the way. So what are the rebates you can get? I'm just going to speed through this because I can send you that. It's on our website, but you can get rebates for duct sealing, duct replacement, attic sealing, insulation, all the things that I've been talking about. For, kind of the more efficient measures, you can get, up to $1,000 for the heat pumps that I was just talking about. So the heat, the newest rebates are those electrification rebates. They're $1,000 for the heat pump water heater and the heat pump for heating and cooling. And then starting Monday, contractors, if you're interested in a heat pump water heater, let your contractors know to contact BayREN because they will get $1,000 themselves if they register with us. So $2,000 to change out your water heater to something that's going to be more efficient and doesn't give off harmful gases. And so again, here are the rebates. Again, we can send this to you. One thing I want to note is we give these bonus rebates because there's things that when you do together, they do better. So for example, I call the downsizing Goldilocks rebate because what most HVAC contractors do is they say, oh, your house is 2,000 square feet. You need a 5-6 ton furnace. They've actually never, you're supposed to do something called a manual J and a manual D calculation to figure out how big of a size you need. because based on how leaky your duct system, based on how it's constructed, it could be a whole lot less. In fact, we've heard that people can basically half the size of their furnace and air conditioning when they actually do that calculation. So you would be paying a lot less because you're not buying such a big system, and you actually feel more comfortable and it's more efficient. So that's why we give these extra rebates. Starting in June and July, and this is you guys will be the first homeowner audience that hears this, is we're going to give a jumpstart incentive, June, July jumpstart incentive, to help get our contractors back to work. We're adding $1,000 to this incentive. This building shop, if you do like insulation along with switching out your furnace or water heater, because of this whole situation, we want to get our contractors back to work and doing good things again. So if you are considering any of these, especially water heaters, because most people only do those when it fails. So it's better to plan it out and do it, because especially if you're switching from gas to electric, there's some things you may need to do with the panel, but it's a limited time. You're essentially getting $1,000 extra to do this. And our contractors, I need to mention that they are trained. We've actually just held a safety training with them on Tuesdays, so they know they've committed to following all of the safety protocols. We do the QA/QC on all of them. They're better than your average contractor because we provide the oversight on them, and they also do all the paperwork for you. So if you wanted to take a look, as Tina mentioned, we have a couple contractors in this area. Go to our website, the Find a Contractor link, and you can start to see who are the contractors in your area that provide these services, and you can search based on what you're looking for, which languages, which counties they serve. I'm going to skip over this. There's, if you want information about financing, you can ask the home energy advisor. They're happy to walk you through that. So as I said, call an energy advisor to get started if you have questions. If you want to do this already, look for a contractor on our website. And that's my information. I kind of coordinate the regional programs, so I work with each individual county, but again, happy to provide this information. Oh, and also, since this is there's realtors in this group, I want to say we also have a program called the Green Labeling Program, where we are providing those trainings for the NAR Green designation for free. We just held a webinar version just a couple of weeks ago. So if you're interested, again, email me. I'll get you on the the mailing list so that you can take those classes and kind of learn a little bit more about all these things that I've been talking about.
Jeffrey, thank you for joining us today here in Contra Costa. I know you run the whole Bay Area regional program, and we really appreciate you bringing your expertise here. It's really fun to work with you again.
Yes, as always.